difficult to discern what it is. Those things, those subtleties, those complexities are extremely difficult to communicate to the parties that you're dealing with. And I think ultimately that gap in some cases translates into fear and skepticism about the authority of and the knowledge of the people that are there to help. We find ourselves in a position where we have to explain these complex and subtle differences to someone who's convinced that they're sick. We're not sick. And to managers that are convinced that they've already done the right thing and there's nothing else to do. And it's a challenge to explain these very demanding topics to these parties in a way that allows them to understand it, to understand the nuance, and to help them to make good decisions. One of the things that I didn't hear about, and I don't recall reading in her book, is the effect of language barriers. Dr. Hamilton talked about interviewing populations, immigrant populations from all over the world, and presumably they spoke a lot of different languages. And maybe she addressed this. Maybe some of your research touches on this point as well. But I certainly can't speak with any authority on that, other than from personal experience, which is it gets in the way. In my practice to this day, I encounter workers that are not native English speakers, and I'm sure as heck not conversant in their languages. More often than not, you do what you do, which is to find someone that understands the language and becomes your de facto translator. But man, oh man, you lose the nuance. You see the eyes looking at you, but you're not getting the whole message. And that part is really lost. Layer on top of that the complexity and the subtlety of some of these things, and this is a big deal. That is a very, very difficult thing to overcome as a practitioner in the field, and is probably a challenge for moving ahead. Leslie had 4 things at the end of her presentation. First-hand experience, and this is from the curriculum. First-hand experience, disciplined inquiry, evidence, and objectivity. And that is absolutely on track. I think that's what drove Alice back in those days, and I think it's absolutely critical. Those are the fundamental issues moving ahead. With that long-winded discussion, I'm happy to pass along the microphone.
I'll get us back on track time-wise. So I'll try not to cover much of what's been said, as I think it's right on the mark, but I have to digress for a second. I was talking to Chris during the break about that Asarco smokestack. I used to stare at that stack every day for 5 years. It's right across the expressway I-10, which is right across the parking lot, and then to a football field, which is known as the Sun Bowl. That's where I played college football. We used to stare at that damn stack every single day. And in the evenings, because of all the other manufacturing that goes on across the border, because the pollution doesn't know borders and boundaries, and the Rio Grande is right there, and the shack housing is right there within an eye shot. It seems like it's 50 yards away, but you can taste the sulfur in the air every day, and it used to drive me crazy as an athlete to have to breathe deeply all the time and have to breathe this in. And it got to the point where it bothered a lot of teammates of mine, and I got to the point where the second year there, they had a few of us on the inhalers. And now that I've finished and that's behind me, I don't have to use it anymore, but just in the back of your head, that it's something there, that there's something in the air that's not right. It's something that's bad enough to cause discomfort or to make you feel like you're not getting in all the oxygen that you need to be getting in. But and that's just in a relatively safe, athletic type, environment. Football has its own hazards. Breathing shouldn't be one of them. it was always crazy to me that existed there, that nobody did something more to prevent that. But one of the points that I want to touch on, though, is something that I think will kind of bring this back a little bit, and that's the point that you made about ASARCO had done so much for the community. It was hard for people to find something bad to say about them, but they had all this bad stuff going on at the time. They were literally killing people at the time with what they were doing. And some of that brings us back to, even to today. It wasn't that long ago that was there. And folks can hide a lot by clever marketing and reaching out to key community groups and co-opting them, essentially. And the people that once viewed these groups as legitimate sources of information or being watchdogs, it can very easily be taken away by a few slick maneuvers by whoever's trying to misinform. But the other thing I want to touch on, I want to try to touch on different things, but I thought some of the questions that were asked, this gentleman here, I forget your name, but you asked a question about the politics of the time. The politics interrupts and interferes with so much of what we have to do, especially in this field that's disgusting. I sit on the Health and Hospital System Board, and we're searching for ways to get more money to do more in the system. And there are some things that we cut right before we got there to take over the independent board. One of the things that was cut out of the program was something that was actually making money, and that was the occupational medicine program that we had going on. And the folks here had a lot to do with that program. I see Dr. Peter Orris in the background over there. He had something to do with the occupational medicine program, but we cut that out. It happened before I got onto the board, but we haven't been able to bring it back since, and some of that has to do with politics. It seems like such a natural and easy fit for something like that to go back, but you don't know where it went wrong politically or how things got caught up, but that shouldn't happen, and there should be a way to punch through that in a way that makes sure that the people that need the help, the people that need a greater scrutiny in their workplace, as far as health matters, that they can get it without having to jump through hurdles to make sure that happens. I thought I'd talk about a few stories of things that have happened in my lifetime as an organizer with the UFCW, but I don't think it would shock many folks in the room to know some of the stories that are out there. But there was one that was really troubling that came up about 2 years ago. I had a reporter call me that usually beats up on labor pretty bad, and when he called, I was like, what now? What's the story? What did we do? I'm not willing to go on the record with anything. What's your problem? Because he kept calling and calling and calling. So he finally got a hold of me. He's like, I need your help. I need to meet with you. And I was like, oh, okay. So we meet, and I'm thinking, oh man, somebody did something wrong, and what is it? And he says, I have a story that I'm working on. It's about one of these day laborers that goes to Home Depot, and they had a builder come pick them up, and to clean debris from a work site once all the trades folks had gone home. And he said that I wish this wasn't being recorded almost, because I don't want to put it on there, but I'll have to water it down some. What happened was that he took the worker there with a group of other workers, and they had him cleaning up the debris around the work site, and he had him climb up a scaffolding that wasn't tied down. And once he got up a good ways, it became more unstable, and he fell into the scaffolding and was getting knocked around like a ping pong ball with the crossbars. And got to the bottom, they all thought he was dead. He dismissed all the workers. When they left, he picked them up with a bobcat, put them in the dumpster, and put stuff over him, right? So the next day the workers were there, and they heard something in the trash can. They thought it was a small animal or something that had gotten caught in there. They went to go and lift the debris. They saw a human being in there. They called the ambulance. Anyway, this person survived, but had a bunch of problems, right? Because they didn't